All right, so let's go to the third out here. Let's try to make sense of this National League wild card race here. So we are looking at in the National League, the Phillies, Dodgers, Brewers right now lead their respective divisions. The Braves right now are sitting, I don't want to say firmly, but they're sitting atop of the National League wild card. They're 4 games ahead of the field. The Cardinals are sitting in the wild card at a half game over the Padres in for that third spot. So the Cardinals are in there. The Padres right now hold that third wild card spot. But here are the list of teams that are really in it. The Padres and the Nationals are essentially tied for that spot. Giants, Diamondbacks, a half game back. Reds, Pirates, a full game back. Cubs, Mets, a game and a half back. So you have about 9 teams in this wild card race
within 2 games.
That's unbelievable. And it's June 17th.
Yeah, I mean, it's the National League is like a few good teams, a whole bunch of mediocre, and a couple horrendous teams right now. I think what I'd like to do with this is I want to try to parse out like who's actually mediocre, who's underperforming, who do we think is overperforming. Like, when I look at these teams, I think there are a couple teams who are thrilled with this, right?
Yeah.
The Pirates being a game out of a wild card spot. Amazing.
Yeah.
Like, awesome. The Nationals sitting in position for a wild card right now.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think they're thrilled about it. Some of these other teams, though, like the Cubs at 34 and 38, Arizona at 35 and 37, San Diego at 37 and 38. Like, I mean, guys, like we're mid-season now. Like, are we waking up? What's the plan here? You know.
Yeah. So let's turn it into a game here, Dalton. Let's play a little bit of contender pretender here. So let's start off at the top here, right? So let's include. So the Braves are not in this discussion, right? So we are excluding the Braves from this discussion. We're also excluding the Rockies and the Marlins, which are the only 2 teams really at the bottom that don't really seem to be in it. The Rockies right now are 10 games back of that last wild card spot, and the Marlins are 12 games back. They're not catching up. They're at the bottom of the barrel here. So let's play this game. So the St. Louis Cardinals are sitting at 35 and 35. They're a half game up of that last spot in the wild card. Contender, pretender.
Easily a pretender. The pitching's awful. It's going to disintegrate. They went on a run to get to where they're at now. It's cute, but they're not good.
Okay. That's interesting. I'm really hoping you're wrong. I really am. Like, if they make the playoffs, I am going to gloat like you wouldn't believe.
Hey.
I'm saying. Okay, the San Diego Padres right now have claim to that last wild card spot over the Nationals slightly, even though they're technically tied. The Padres right now, what are you thinking?
Contender. I mean, the talent is absolutely there. They've already gotten most of their games against the Dodgers out of the way, although they play well when they play the Dodgers anyway. Yeah, I mean, I think the Padres. Like, if you were to ask me which teams are going to claim these spots, and I'll tell you who they are as we go along, but one of them is the Padres.
Yeah, I kind of think so too. San Diego is one of those teams that's like, if they're not good enough now, they will be after the deadline, because like you said, that they're going to buy to try to keep contending.
Look, I already announced on this show that I looked into my crystal ball, and Jesus Luzardo is going to be in San Diego soon. I already announced that on the show, so you can go ahead and pencil Jesus Luzardo into their rotation. I think you can. I also think the Padres, just because it's who Preller is, I think they're going to go nuts to try to make a move for like a Luis Robert or a Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Like, they are that team. Like, they're going to chase the biggest fish they can.
Why not go try to get Bo Bichette, man? They love shortstops.
If there's one thing the Padres need, it's more shortstops.
It's true. It's very true. I agree with you though. I think the Padres are absolutely a contender. They right 37-38 right now. They're a game under 500. Let's go to the Washington Nationals, 35-36. They're one of those very interesting. Nobody knows any of the players on their team, but they're somehow competitive, right? CJ Abrams is really kind of blossoming as a budding star in the league potentially, and they've got a couple other players that are intriguing. 35-36, the Washington Nationals. What do you think?
I mean, look, the pitching is pretty good.
It is.
Mackenzie Gore's been great. Jake Irvin's been great. Mitchell Parker's been a great find for them as a rookie.
Yeah.
Like the bullpen has some dudes. So like the Nationals are interesting. I don't think they're a contender. To answer the binary question, they're a pretender, but like good for them, man. Like the young guys that they acquired in these trades are starting to pan out.
Yeah.
They're an interesting team to watch. They are going to sell at the deadline.
Yeah.
I still think they're going to sell at the deadline because I think, with the way Winker's been hitting, there will be a team that will take him off their hands. Lane Thomas, I think, is earmarked to go. But, hey, I mean, look, one more deadline of selling in a good offseason, this team's a contender. Like, I think they're a year away from, like, actually being back. Of course, for them, it's a tough division. But, hey, you know what? Good for you, Nationals. You're not a contender yet, but good for you.
No, listen, you got to give them props, right? You absolutely have to give them props. I agree with everything that you just said. I think that the reality, and if you didn't bring it up, I was going to, I still think that like when the deadline comes around, they will probably end up selling. Like they're going to look at the Lane Thomases, the Kyle Finnegans, they're going to deplete that bullpen a little bit. Kyle Finnegan, Hunter Harvey, like they're going to try and sell off a few of those pieces just to keep rebuilding. But I also think that they're kind of at the stage now where they might be looking in those trades for MLB ready guys. Like I think they'll be less willing to take on like the 18-year-old Dominican shortstop that needs to sit in the minors for 6 years. Like they're not going to do that anymore. They're going to want to trade for guys that are in AA and ready to go up.
Yeah. I mean, like if you're the Nationals, do you flip Lane Thomas and a reliever and see if you can get Gavin Lux out of it, right? Like just thinking out loud as a Dodger fan of like what kind of deal they might try to make. I think something like that would make sense.
Yeah. You'd love that as a Dodger fan, wouldn't you? Lane Thomas and a reliever for Gavin Lux?
I mean, you're probably giving up more than Gavin Lux in that deal, but Gavin Lux is the kind of player that comes to mind where it's like a young, controllable player who like is considered to have a lot of potential, but is at the major league level. I still believe in Gavin Lux. Like I know there aren't as many of me out there nowadays, but like I just love the guy's swing. He's been hitting the cover off the ball lately, just not getting results. But we can talk about him another
time. The Arizona Diamondbacks, 35-37. They are an interesting team. I loved them coming into the season. If you would have asked me preseason if they were going to be a wild card team, I would have said absolutely yes. Right now, 2 games under 500. If you like, here's the thing. I think the roster is pretty much in place. Like, I don't know that, like, if you look at their roster on paper, you're going to say, like, okay, the rotation's pretty good. The lineup's got some depth and pretty good.
No.
I don't. That's the way that I see it. No?
I just don't agree with any of that. I don't think they're good. And like, I know I sound like an asshole, and, like, I said it preseason and I meant it. I don't think Arizona is very good. Like I think I don't think they're bad, but like they had this great season last year and that's awesome. But I think they're also dealing with like a lot of regression, some older guys. The rotation has come back to like I just don't think they're all that great. Like, look, if you look up and down this lineup, Corbin Carroll looks like a pumpkin, man. Like this looks like a guy who like was kind of a one-year wonder and the pitchers figured him out. And like now we're 2.5 months into the season and he's nowhere near making an adjustment. That's problematic. Like he's OPSing 612. And you look at the guys who are supposed to be like their guys. Corbin Carroll 612 OPS, Gurriel 676 OPS. Like Christian Walker's been pretty good, but like Gabby Moreno can't hit. Like they've kind of just fallen off with the guys who last year, like I think maybe what we're learning with Arizona is a lot of these guys last year played above their reality. This year they're playing below their reality. The truth is somewhere in between. But like I just don't think this team is relying on guys that you want to be relying on, because they're also not that young. Like Christian Walker, I feel like we think of him as this young he's 33.
Yeah.
Ketel Marte is getting up there. Like Eugenio Suarez has been useless. I just, and you look at the guys that are rolling out there right now to pitch. Like Brandon Pfaadt, ERA around 4.5. Ryan Nelson hasn't looked great. Slade
Montgomery's been awful.
Montgomery's been unplayable, right? Slade Ciccone hasn't been great. Like where do you really look and feel good with this team? For me, I have to put Arizona like right in the pretenders, and part of it's that I think like I just think they're going to get beat up by the Dodgers and Padres going down the stretch too. I just don't think I don't buy Arizona.
Yeah, no, I think you make a good case there. I think like so. Let me pose it to you this way: if you're Arizona, what do you do? Do you tear the whole thing down?
If I'm Arizona, I look at the guys who are on short-term deals and I try to get something for them. Like I look for. I mean, again, it's going to depend a lot on what happens in the next like 5 or 6 weeks. Like if they start playing better baseball, they're not selling. But let's say they end up being a seller. Like I'm looking for a team who wants Christian Walker. I'm looking for a team to take Suarez off me. I'm looking for a team to take Jock Peterson. Obviously you're going to hold on to Corbin Carroll and you're going to hold on to Geraldo Perdomo and you're going to hold on to, Gallen. But I think you could see them sell in a way that's kind of like a retooling where they're trading away some of their vets.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's interesting. It's interesting. I'm a little bit disappointed in their production this year.
Yeah.
I tend to believe more in their roster, I guess, than you do, but I'm also like I get it. Like they've definitely kind of come back after the World Series, have kind of hit a wall, and they're not getting production out of the guys that they really are relying on. Like a lot of their middle of the order hitters, like you said, Christian Walker has been Lourdes Gurriel has really been Like, Gabby Moreno is the one that really stuns me. Is like we looked at Gabby Moreno as a guy in the playoffs last year who was hitting in the middle of their order, was one of the more reliable hitters, and he's hitting what, 210? Like he's not hitting at all. So San Francisco Giants, they're right now dead tied with the Arizona Diamondbacks. Are you in on them? Are you out on them? What are you thinking? Could they make a run?
I've never really been in on them. I just don't think. I mean, I don't think we need to spend a ton of time on them. The Giants, like what they've done so far, is kind of what I would have expected. I think they're a middle league ball club, kind of where they're going to be.
I 100% agree. I don't think they're like the way you feel about the Diamondbacks, the way I feel about the Giants. I just don't think their roster is any good. I don't see it as a very competitive roster.
I think some of the guys that they went out and got just don't make sense. Like Soler in that ballpark is it's not a fit that makes sense to me.
He's a trade piece.
God, you talk about a guy that I would love to see the Dodgers go get. I mean, they're not going to beat the Giants, but like, oh man, I love Soler's bat, and I think that he's a guy that's going to mash some homers in the playoffs for somebody.
We'll do this as kind of like a 3-in-1 shot, right? Because they're back to back to back, and they're all.
No, I'd rather not if it's okay, because I have some interesting comments on each of these for what it's worth.
Okay, yeah, we'll do it that way then. 34 and 37 right now, the Cincinnati Reds.
I have the Reds as a pretender. I kind of have them in the same category as the Giants, but I think they're moving in a more exciting direction.
Yeah,
I think the Giants have some older guys, have some better inspiring prospects. Like the Reds are a team moving in a fun direction. I just don't think they're there yet.
Yeah, I think I don't know that I'm there on the Reds either. But I will say the Reds are one of those, and I've been saying this for 2 months. The Reds are the team that I look at where like all they like they're the team that I can just like see gets fucking hot for 6 weeks and just jumps ahead of everybody, right? Because they're too stupid to realize that they're not that good, right? They're so young and they are like you can't tell me that they don't play with passion or anything. Like I said, they're too dumb. Like they're not experienced enough to realize that they're not as good as they actually think they are. You know what I mean? Like they're gonna go out and they're gonna steamroll teams for 6 weeks, and then all of a sudden, like we're looking at the Reds. Like I don't know that I'm ruling out the Reds for the division at this point. Like like that's how I feel about them. I'm not like totally buying in and saying that they're a contender, but something about them just makes me see it. I don't know. I can just like see them going on a run.
I mean, the thing about that division is Milwaukee has been the clear best team in it so far. But we talked about Milwaukee's roster last week. Like, that's not a team that intimidates you at all.
No.
And it's a team that, like, you could easily see going cold at some point. And I think that the word you're looking for with the Reds is high variance, or the term you're looking for with the Reds is high variance. I think they're a team that, like, could get real hot and real cold. I don't believe in them yet, but, like, I wouldn't be shocked if they took a wild card spot. You know,
right.
I'd be shocked if the Giants took one. I wouldn't be shocked if the Reds took
one. Right. Pittsburgh, same thing, 34-37, 34 and 37. They're dead tied with the Reds. What about the Pittsburgh Pirates?
So this is where it gets kind of funny. I'm like wanting to say contender here.
Wow.
And like, I'm not actually saying contender here, but I'm wanting to. Like, and part of it for me is this rotation's good. Like, it just is. Like, the top three in this rotation's really good. Like, Mitch Keller is probably their third best pitcher right now.
Yeah.
Like, Paul Skeens looks like one of the best pitchers in baseball already. Like, just absolutely just one of the best pitchers in baseball.
He's a stud, 100%.
Jared Jones has stuff like Paul Skeens, right? He's been awesome and getting better. Like, the numbers with him aren't quite as impressive, but like the 1.13 whip, like, I think it's only going to get better for Jared Jones, and he's already really good. And then you have Mitch Keller, who's like a proven top of the line starter in the league. Maybe not like ace, but a proven like upper end starter in the league. If they can get like just some innings out of Martin Perez, Bailey Falter, Ortiz, Priester, these other guys who they're kind of throwing out there, like this is a good pitching staff.
Yeah.
And like this is a team that's been really solid without their bullpen really pitching the way you'd like to see it. You know what I mean? Like I look at Bednar, right? Like I don't think it's a horrible idea to bet on Bednar figuring it out.
Yeah.
Like Chapman, the stuff is still there. He looks great at times. And then like Holderman's been very solid. So I think the pitching's there for Pittsburgh. Offensively, O'Neal Cruz is like becoming more and more of the fun player he's supposed to be. Brian Reynolds produces. Like obviously, they're going to need more guys to step up if they want to get into that contender category. They're thin.
26th in OPS right now. The Pirates.
Yeah, I mean the offense is not good, but like if Triolo starts to figure it out, if Brian Hayes if they have like one or two more guys figure it out on offense, the offense will be good enough that this pitching staff will carry them.
Yeah.
And like when you look at the underbelly of the National League, like I wouldn't be that shocked to see the Pirates steal that third wild card spot. Like I like the Pirates right now better than I like the Giants. I like them better than I like the Nationals. I like them, I think, better than I like the Reds. And I think a lot of it for me is just that like they have something those teams don't have, which is a really fucking good rotation.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the Pirates are one of those teams, because you bring up a very good point. The Pirates are one of those teams where I don't think you want to see them in the playoffs. Like they're one of those teams that like
series or a wild card series.
That's what I'm talking about. It's like you got to go up against Jared Jones, Mitch Keller, Paul Skeens, in a playoff series. That's pretty nasty, dude. That's a lot to deal with. The issue, like I said, that I have with Pittsburgh is that I don't think they don't offensively produce anywhere near what I think a playoff team would produce like. Like they just don't, right? If you're looking at that lineup and you're looking at Brian Reynolds as the best player in that lineup, I just don't think that you're good enough offensively. And if they actually kind of want to make a run, they'd have to buy a bat. And I don't, they'd probably have to buy two at least.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I fall for them. I don't think you're wrong by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's interesting that you like them more than the Giants because I don't know that I disagree. I actually think that I like them more than the Giants. I kind of put them in the same sentence as I don't know. I probably put them in the same sentence as Cincinnati and probably like the Diamondbacks. Like that's kind of where I see them. I think the Diamondbacks might be a little bit better, but again, like I'm kind of going off of like I don't even want to really say track record. I think I just trust Arizona a little bit more. Pittsburgh is one of those teams that's like, but like I said, you bring up a good point of like that rotation could be very scary come postseason time.
Yeah, I mean, how can you trust the Pirates as an organization after what they've been for like almost our entire life? So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to argue with you there. The Cubs are a contender to me still. I think they've gone cold, and it's been kind of ugly. But I've talked on this show a lot about why I think the Cubs are pretty good. I just think there's talent in every facet of that roster, and I think as they get healthier, I think they're going to play better. I'll put it this way: I think their best baseball is ahead of them. So I'm still a believer in the Cubs, and I know we're running way long on this. I'll mention the Mets. The Grimace run is a fun thing, but the Mets aren't real.
No, I agree. The Mets, I don't think the Mets are real at all. I think they're going to end up selling a bunch by the time the deadline comes around. I think the Cubs are going to be in a position to buy. Like, I don't think the Cubs are going to be a team that, like, all of a sudden starts taking calls on Cody Bellinger and Ian Happ and Christopher Morel. And, I don't see that. I think they're going to start buying guys for that reason. Like I said, they need to hit better though. But that's kind of like that's a lineup. That's what differentiates Chicago from Pittsburgh for me. Is like I think Chicago's chance of like the bats waking up is way better than Pittsburgh. Way, way better. Because they have the dudes that have done it before. Pittsburgh doesn't. They just don't. Like unless you're telling me like Andrew McCutchen is gonna just like break out like he did in 2010. Like I don't know that I buy that.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Braves are taking the first wild card. I think we both think that, right?
Yes.
Unless they get hot and take over the Phillies. But at this point, that's looking not likely. Yes. So let's say the Braves take the first wild card.
Yep.
For me, well, I've got mine for who I think takes the other two. Who do you think takes the other two?
If I were to say right now, I'd probably say Padres and Cubs.
Yeah. I think Padres and Cubs is the first place my head goes as well. The teams that I think could be disruptors here are Cincinnati and Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And I know Pittsburgh's weird to say. You know what it is with Pittsburgh? It's the fact that sometimes when you get a young ball club that all of a sudden has things go its way, sometimes you just see this momentum show up that just gets real contagious. And to me, the Skeens Jared Jones engine for them is something that I think is pretty real.
Yeah.
And I think if the bats heat up at all, I think either the Cubs or the Padres could end up missing out. Could end up losing out on a spot to them. So same thing with Cincinnati, right? They're both teams that are young and kind of have some flashy pieces, and you could see them just getting too big for their britches and all of a sudden playing well for a while. So to me, those are the two teams in contention. I'm not. I want to be bought in on the Nationals. I'm not bought in on Arizona, San Francisco, or the Mets.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely not there with the Nationals yet. I'm definitely not in on the Mets. I'm definitely not in on San Francisco. I think that Arizona and St. Louis are at least interesting in some aspects. Like I said, maybe I'm buying into the veteran thing with them. Because I think even Arizona right now, because their entire roster is kind of playing like shit. And they're still 35 and 37. Like, this is kind of a point where I'm like, if Arizona just gets themselves to where their guys are playing league average, like, I think they're for sure in. Like forget about the Cubs or forget about like, if Arizona even just climbs in any sort of degree, and I think I could trust them to do that, I don't know that I can keep Arizona out. I just don't know that I can.
So, one thought on Arizona.
Yeah.
Looking at their schedule between now and the trade deadline, which is about 6 weeks away.
Yep.
Just in the next 6 weeks, they have series on the road in Philadelphia, home against the Twins, at Dodgers, at Padres, 4-gamer at home against Atlanta, at Cubs, at Kansas City, all before the trade deadline.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of meat on that schedule, man. And if they don't, like, you know, a lot of times in baseball, if you don't put it together before the trade deadline, you're not putting it together.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. We'll see.
Here we go. Ready? Prediction time. I think in that stretch, Arizona will go over 500.
If they do, things will be looking up. I'll say that, right? Because after that, things get a little more relaxed for them.
Yeah, like I said, I believe. Listen, and I don't blame you for not believing in them as much as I do. I don't know. I believe in them a little bit more. I just do.